Had to fart.
Yeah, it went live. All right. We started off with a fart.
Icebreaker, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Icebreaker. Hey, we're excited. We're back with another episode of What the
Shell.
We started off with a icebreaker. Did it catch the fart? It did?
Yeah.
Hey, at least we'll always have to remember, man. This is Lucky 13, man. Lucky 13. On. So yeah, man, we're back with another episode. We're pretty excited. This one's been a long time in the making. We kind of had a sneak preview a couple episodes back where we had him and Dan coming on and talking about their influence when we were talking about influence. So I'm pretty excited. He's pretty well known in the turtle realm. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely, man.
I got to ask you before we get started, what are you most excited about in regards to this episode?
I think something that we touched on prior to is just excited to hear about it, almost like his encounters, since this dude, you can easily relate to him because he's just a normal guy that loves to just explore, and that's almost how we all started, and he's almost really stayed rooted and grounded in that. And I'm just excited to hear a bunch of his, personal stories and, going out in the woods and, whatever you might have it and what the crazy stuff he's encountered and, whatever you might have it, man. I know he has some incredible, closures and just setups and naturalistic stuff, but I think I'm most excited about that also.
No, I'd have to agree. From somebody who does no herping, actually, the most herping that I do is going on a walk with my daughter and spending the entire time looking in the pond, stream, or woods. Like, is there a turtle? Is that a turtle?
But that's the beauty about it, that's the versatility to where, it doesn't matter about, if you have this accessibility or, or even it's just around the block. I mean, you figure a way, especially if you're passionate about it, you will be just as passionate about wherever you're at, in a neighborhood rather than, in the woods. So
no, it's funny you say that because surprisingly enough, I've found aquatic turtles in the woods next to where we walk, but never really found them in the actual water. And so now my wife is like, can you stop looking for turtles and just walk with us? And it's like, well, this is me herping, man. Like, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, to kind of confirm that, my wife was walking our daughter, it was like a month ago, just around the block and no water in sight or anything except for a pond down the road. And she sent me pictures and texted me saying that we found and saved a baby turtle or whatever. And I was like, really? And she was like, it looks like one of yours, and it ended up being just a 3-line mud turtle and just in the road, literally in the road. Like, what are you doing here?
Were you instantly mad you didn't go on that walk?
Yeah, I was kind of upset, because I've been on that walk plenty of times with no avail, so go figure. She was like even afraid to touch it. I'm like, oh.
Well, let's go ahead and get the man of the hour onto the podcast because I can see him looking and he's shaking viciously, ready to be a part of this podcast, man.
Sharpie, baby, come on.
I have to admit, I don't think I've had a guest on here that has publicized his arrival as much as himself. So I am very thankful for that.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Without further ado, let's go ahead and add Greg from GregsTurtleHaven. What's up, man?
What's up, guys? How y'all doing?
Oh, man. Ready to get started. Man, dude, we already got people.
Already, man.
Saying some weird stuff,
Yeah, I was sharing it a lot, man. You got to blow it up. If you're going to do a podcast, you got to do it right, and you got to make sure everybody sees it, right?
No, I appreciate it, man.
Not just afterwards.
even though this is, I guess, like 1.5, because you were kind of on a half a podcast. I will say I'm very thankful that even though we've only recently become acquainted personally, you've actually shared almost all of the podcast things through Instagram and different means. And I got to admit, that means a lot, man, because I feel like the only way we can kind of progress in different things is to get support from other people who are doing awesome things. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I mean, we're all doing the same thing. We're all trying to share information, and we're all trying to make lives better, not only for turtles, for ourselves. And if you're doing a podcast, if the Turtle Room guys are doing a podcast, if TSA does one, it's like it's in everybody's best interest just to share it around and kind of share the information.
You relate to him. Yeah, definitely, man. And like you said, not enough people are doing it or even afraid to step out to do it. So, to see, even I don't care how long you've been doing it, you get just as good of a feeling when someone shares your thing or whatever it is. I'd hope and you would in the very beginning.
I got to shout out this guy too while we're at it. My man Evan, find him on Instagram. That's Turtles and More. He shares every single flyer too, man. I have to thank him.
Yeah, he's tight.
It's all about, man. Unity, man. So let's get cracking, man.
So Greg, in our previous minuscule time allotment, you had told us how you got started on social media, your Instagram, kind of your foundation. So for the people that may not have watched that episode, can you go ahead and give them a little information about yourself, your past, and basically how you became GregsTurtleHaven?
I mean, if we're gonna go, it's like such a whole thing to try and make into this little tiny package.
Hey, you don't have to make it little, man. I can hear you.
You got way more on the floor now, man. It's all you.
Yeah. So let's see. I'll be 40 years old this year, and I got my first turtles around 7 years old. And then I remember when I was a little kid, my dad would drive me around, and he would always point out box turtles crossing the road, and that always kind of fascinated me. And then my dad also had box turtles when he was a kid, and he raised them outside. So kind of fast forwarding through, about 7 through my 20s, I'd always kept turtles and had different species and played around with different ways to keep them. And pretty early on, figured out the best way to do it was outdoors. And then somewhere around, my 20s, I was kind of getting involved in doing television work and photography and all that stuff. And then, but also skateboarding a lot. So I was traveling a lot doing that. And then as I started kind of slowing down and getting in my 30s and growing up a little bit, I got on Instagram. And
I gotta stop you. Are you telling me that when I get into my 30s, I'm gonna grow up?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it depends on who you ask. I'm pretty.
That don't know better.
I'm pretty not grown up, but I'm way more grown up than who I was, in my 20s. I mean,
that's reassuring, man.
Yeah.
Dude, shout out! I'm turning 30 this year, so in a couple months. So,
dude, give me 30 back. I'll take it, man. But yeah. So when I first got on Instagram, it was more focused on skateboarding, but then I started, meeting people and kind of following them and seeing it as there's this whole side of I can find all the other turtle keepers, because the only other way I communicated with other turtle people was in the early 2000s. There was Turtle Forum on Austin's Turtle page, and there was a whole network of people, and they all kind of, as that disbanded and Facebook took over, the forums kind of died. And those guys became some of them went on to do Turtle Room. Some of them went on to do other things. And so there was this kind of gap of about 10 years. And then around the time Instagram started getting popular, I started, following a few people and meeting a few people on there, and sharing photos is the best way to find people that are into turtles. And, when I first started Instagram, and I still have it, it's my personal page, but mostly it was me filming weird looking people coming out of a Walmart or a gas station and putting it on my story. And then I started doing Instagram for turtles. I started it for my Burmese mountain tortoise, and she doesn't have a tail. She just has a butthole. So the original account was Butthole the Tortoise. And if you go all the way back to the very beginning of my Instagram, there's a picture of a tortoise, and I'm sure it says something about a butthole on there. But so I started doing that, and then through that, I met Greg Woodstock from Aquascape, and he invited me to Pandemonium. And when I went there, I hung out with Kenan a lot. And while I was up there, there was 3 or 4 other big YouTubers there, and I was kind of watching the stuff they were doing, and it looked like fun. And talking with Kenan, he kind of told me, he was like, dude, you can do this, go for it, start putting out content, because we were kind of talking how me and him do very similar stuff, but the difference being is where I live, we have winter time, and there's kind of that gap. And what a lot of the South Florida guys cover is they don't really have a winter time or, much of a season. Whereas even where I live in Atlanta, I'm still in the South, but we still get a decent winter. So
yeah,
I'm able to kind of have a rhythm with the stuff that I cover and show how to, do turtles through winter and cold weather and all that stuff. So that motivated me to do the YouTube channel, and I've been doing it almost a year now. And I mean, it's going good. was kind of clunky in the beginning, like most things, but I mean, so far it's going all right. I'm enjoying like both showing the captive stuff and every Friday I do herping and I like showing that as well.
I gotta ask this, Greg. You mentioned Kenan, and you've told me before, but maybe our viewers would be interested. How did you know him prior to Pandemonium? Like, what was that for him to like give you advice, I guess?
Well, I mean, we've always had like a lot of mutual friends because Kenan was like a pro BMXer and I was involved in skateboarding and I knew a bunch of people in the skate industry. So we had a lot of kind of crossover in our friends group. And then I think we met originally maybe like a Daytona in 2014 or something. We've always been in contact and stuff. So there's always been kind of a like, we know each other thing. And
so it wasn't like we met through YouTube. It was like we knew each other prior type deal.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So you've only gotten one season under your belt as far as So do you have? So you say you've been doing it for a year so far. So have you only been through one whole season? Of all the seasons in one whole, winter and all that kind of stuff. So you got.
Yeah, I would say I've only as far as what I've put on YouTube. Yeah, I think I've only gotten one where I go through winter and spring, all that.
Yeah.
And it was pretty good. I mean, I've obviously I've been keeping my turtles like this for way before I was doing YouTube.
Yeah.
But there is a certain difference when it's like, oh, okay, well now I'm going to show everybody in the world that wants to see it. It's a little bit different. It's kind of like, the same way, like, you might walk around your house with no pants on, but when you have company over,
So does your tone and just everything change? Like, you have it down pat to where when it's time to whatever you're going to record or whatever, like you got it down pat. You almost switch gears. Or
when I was watching some of those YouTube guys when I was at Aquascape and stuff, it was like, I would kind of watch the way they talk and hang out, and then they would fire up the camera and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, guys!" And they'd like start doing that, and I was like, "Dude, I'm not doing that. There's no way. Like, there's no way I'm doing that." Yeah. So I've tried to, and like I said, everything's clunky in the beginning, but I just kind of try to talk to the camera because that's your audience. I just try to talk to them like they're my friends. And I remember when I was working in television and you would talk with talent and stuff, it was like the way they do it is you have your personality and then you just dial it up like one or two more clicks past that. And that's your spot. That's where you need to be at. So pretty much what you see is what you get when I'm filming. I mean, I don't really I've had episodes where like my mom is called in the middle of me filming. Like, I mean, if it happens, it happens. That's how it is. I filmed one today where like I was fixing a pond and like my hat gets ripped off because I was an idiot and didn't pay attention to a branch with thorns over my head. So I just leave it in there.
Now, I have to admit, as somebody who watches most of the videos, you're pretty much talking to us just like this for the majority of your videos, like the best pet turtles and different things like that. You're just hanging out, man. And I gotta admit, I like that vibe when. Not saying I don't like the other vibes, but it gives you a good balance. Like,
well, I mean, my goal is just to get people stoked and to get people to maybe they learn, like, maybe out of all the crap I talk about, maybe they learn one thing, but that one thing might change everything they do, or it might be the difference between them making a good decision or a bad decision on a pet turtle, or it's like one of those things. It's you go back in time and you change one thing. It changes everything. So I try to just keep it to where I'm able to put out a lot of information, but I want people to be able to stomach all of that information. You know what I mean? And if you're super dry about it, you're going to lose some people. If you're super over the top about it, dude, you're going to lose people. Like if you're over the top, dude, you're going to lose me for sure. Like I can't, I got to go find a bucket to throw up in when I see that.
No, that's awesome. You want me to start off with my first question, Ed, or do you want to take?
I had one question while you were talking, and it kind of struck a question for me. Is that you said early on you found out that keeping them outside and that in that kind of way was how you wanted was the right way, and how, at least how you wanted to do it. Can you expand upon that? Like how you, other than the fact, them living outside, was there any other kind of,
Yeah, I think in the beginning, I remember in the beginning, my first turtles were, let's see, there was Florida box turtles that I think my dad had picked up on his way home from work. And I mean, where we lived in Florida at that time, I mean, there was nothing around. Every single day you could see box turtles, gopher tortoises, indigo snakes crossing the road. I'm fortunate to have lived during a time like that. But so I remember I had one, and I had it in like a box in the garage, and it sucked. It was like, this isn't how so let it go. And then I remembered being in second grade, and there was a science book, and it had a picture of a painted turtle in it. And I used to I'm supposed to be reading all the other stuff in class, but all I'm doing is staring at this picture of this painted turtle. And so I asked for, I think for my birthday, for a pet turtle. And so we went and got like a red-eared slider, and then eventually I got another one. But I was just keeping them in this like 20-gallon tank. And then I think the next birthday, we upgraded to like a 75 or something like that. And then the pet store also had a bunch of different kinds of turtles, and I added Western painted and like a Mississippi map. And the Mississippi map was like dead as a doornail the next day. But so I was trying to set up this aquarium, and they get going good for a while, but it's just so much work and so much effort. And then I remember, because at that time, I mean, I was 8, 9 years old, but I was going herping every day. There wasn't a name for it. It wasn't herping. It was like I was just going out looking for animals. I had a backpack. I had a backpack with like a sandwich and a field guide in it, and that was it. But I remember there was a time where I was looking at this, like, it was just a ditch. I mean, this is Sebastian, Florida. It was just a ditch, but it had so many turtles in it, and I was just watching them swim up and down. And then I remember having the like thought in my head of like, even a section of that is 10 times bigger than an aquarium in my room, Yeah. And so it just kind of, it always stayed in my head. And then it took a few years, but after a while I started moving some tubs out of like onto my parents' porch. And then I started, I think at one point I built a small pond, and the more I did that, the more I started to realize how well it all worked. And I was like, it was just at one point, I was just like, yeah, this is it. This is the way. And I remember as soon as I moved stuff outside, it just seemed backwards to me to keep things indoors. And I was never good at aquariums. Like, eat little things like keeping the glass clean, like all that sucks. And like, trying to get the filters, and, there's like the hang on the back filter, and those things suck. And then like the good ones are like Fluvals or something that are like $500, and it's like that. And sucks. They still suck. Yeah, clean. Yeah, I think the only aquarium I really liked I did when I was younger was I had one for 2 soft shells, and it was just filled to the brim, and it had an above tank basking area and like really fine gravel, and like that tank worked amazing. It worked perfect for those 2 soft shells, but it was still like, maybe a 75-gallon tank. That's not much. Yeah. Like if you like take a 75-gallon tank and go set it in the middle of a creek and tell me how big that is. Yeah. So yeah, after a while I was just like, I'm not doing this aquarium thing again, and I was over it. And I just started wanting to, and there was no internet examples back then either. It was just like, okay, I can do this pond. And that was when I started getting involved with like Turtle Forum and talking with people on there. And everything just kind of snowballs. And then just over the last probably 20 years, that's how I've kept turtles. And I hardly ever have anything die. I never get fungus. I never get bacteria, especially when they go through the seasons and they're under ice for, maybe a day or two. Like people are terrified of that, but they need that. I mean, that's what they have in the wild. When they get that rhythm in the seasons, I mean, they just do so much better. They're so much healthier. Their growth looks better, everything.
Hey, did you have a problem breaking aquariums? Because I definitely did.
No, not unless it was in like a fit of anger or something. But
when I was cleaning them, I used to break a lot of them by accident.
No, I had one where I put a common snapper in it like an idiot, and just the claws stripped up the silicone. Because they'll do that. They'll just sit there and work in a corner until they get that silicone, and then they'll just peel it up with their claw, or they'll chew on it or something. It's a bad idea.
So you keep all your still in tubs outside, or in like?
Yeah. So yeah. Around? Yeah, everything. There's tubs above ground. Like I've got one of those extra large Waterland tubs that's like a Ford Ranger, and then I've got like I've got a lot of Tough Stuff tubs. I love that company, man, and I'd like to be on the board with them. But they make amazing tubs, and one thing I like about the Tough Stuff tubs is that material they use. As you fill it, it spreads out, and so you get like almost a bigger water footprint as you fill it. So I really like that. I also have the Rubbermaid ones. I've got 2 or 3 liner ponds, and then like a lot of plastic tubs. I have a lot of tubs that are just dedicated to growing things out. So I grow out a lot of my own snails, plants, all that stuff. And then those little grow out tubs are also good if I want to separate out some little hatchlings or something too.
Gotcha. So how did that transition work from Florida to up in Georgia? Like then, did you have a good collection going at the time before you
Yeah,
moved?
I didn't have a lot because I knew, my parents, obviously moving with your parents, you can't just take everything. And so I think I had a tidy little sum of like maybe some mud turtles. I remember I had a chicken turtle, and I think I had like my red-eared slider that I'd had since I was a little kid. And then, moved all that stuff up to Georgia, and I had all those turtles for, years. And then when I moved to where I used to live before I lived here, I moved in with a buddy, and I went on a skate trip, and I came back, and raccoons had eaten all my turtles. There's just like a pile of shells by the fence. So I lost all the turtles that I'd had for a long, long time.
Oh, man.
I gotta ask this. Do you keep anything in aquariums currently, like indoors?
Yeah. I do my Mata in an aquarium because he's still really small.
Okay.
And and to be honest, I did him in an aquarium mainly for YouTube videos because I wanted to be able to show the feeding mechanism and stuff. And the best way to do that is through glass. You can do it from above, and I've done it a couple of times, but it's just better in an aquarium. But as he gets bigger, he'll probably not be in an aquarium. I'll just keep him in a tub. He has a tub right now, but it's pretty much stationed outside.
Yeah.
Curious. I know the Matamatas are like a South American species, and like it warmer. Do you have any plans for that in regards to like putting them outside and bringing them in for winter?
Yeah. He comes in the winter. I'll honestly probably start bringing him in October. I don't know enough about their cold tolerance. Like a lot of my other stuff that's from, like tropical places, over years, I'll kind of stair step them each year a little bit longer and a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and kind of condition them. But, the thing with Matamas is 99% of them are all imports. So they all came from the wild, and, there's no way I'm going to be able to, let this guy hang out there till November or December. So,
yeah. Right. Now that's understandable. I think I only have one current aquarium set up. Otherwise, it's tubs and outdoors.
Yeah. I usually keep mine. Any hatchlings I get, I automatically, to get them used to the personal, relationship, and get them used to you a little bit. And then once that's established, move them into tubs, and they already know you, and you're pretty much good to go.
I will, like, sometimes musk turtles will lay really late in the year, so I'll get like hatchling musk turtles in like November or December, and so I'll start them off. I have like in my office I have a couple like 10 gallons, and I'll just start them off in the 10 gallons. And they'll just sit right next to me while I work or whatever, and they can kind of hang out. And then certain species are really personable. Musk turtles are really personable, and so when you get them used to you in an aquarium, So I'm not trying to crap all over aquariums or people that keep them that way. Just for me personally, it's not my thing. There's a lot of people that do really well with it. I know, like, there's a Turtle Girl. She's on YouTube, and she does a lot of stuff with aquariums and gives good advice with that.
It's really about what you want to do and whatever effort and work you put into your own animals. You want it to make sure it's your niche and what you want it to be. Let's say it's no right or wrong. It's just a preference thing. And if it's your work and your animals, then guess what? I think you should have the right to, whichever one you prefer, and especially if you're passionate about that outside. I've always kind of wanted to, but I've gone from Ohio to Florida to it's like, dude, I now I've dealt with, doing the aquatic biology and working there and seeing how a mess that can be, in the ecosystem. I'm like, golly, man, I don't even know if I want to go that route outside.
Hey, I got a question for you. I think I definitely told you, Greg, what happened to me earlier this week. But I didn't tell Ed, and it was partially because I wanted to discuss it on this podcast. Sorry. What are some things that you would recommend to people that want to keep their animals outdoors that they should consider? And I say this, and I'm going to tell my story while you think about it. So, Ed, as you know, I keep some Florida box turtles. I have 3 of them. Don't worry. I have enough people in my family to account for those 3. But yes, I have 3 Florida box turtles, and I kept them outdoors. They were semi-aquatic. The setup was about 50% water, 50% land. Well, I was out getting pizza with my family, and there was a bad rainstorm. And I came home to feed my box turtles because I try to feed them after it rains because they seem to be more active. And basically, it seemed like that's when they would normally hunt. So I was going to feed them, but there was only 2 in their enclosure. I spent an hour looking for them, looking for the one that escaped. I took apart its enclosure. I took apart the ponds that were next to it. Glenn, I did have an overflow. It clearly was not enough. I say that because Glenn commented, I'm still beating myself up. And so don't take it like I'm coming at you, Glenn, because I'm not, buddy. So yeah, it was in my neighbor's backyard. It went through our privacy fence and into his yard. Well, I contacted both of my neighbors. I went knocking on their door. This neighbor didn't answer. So I have to admit, I did hop the fence and I did illegally go into his backyard. But in my rage, it was like, where is Speedy? Okay. It was my first Florida box turtle, so it was going down. And the only reason I really entered his yard was I was sitting on the fence and I saw what I thought was Speedy. Like it was just like a black blob. And I was like, that's Speedy. That has to be. So I hopped down, got him, and hopped back out. So I say all of this because it was about an hour that it took me to find him. What are some things that you would recommend to people that keep their animals outside to prevent them from necessarily having mistakes like you or I have had?
I mean, escapes are going to happen. I mean, that's a part of it. I would recommend, first off, have a fence in your yard of some kind, because if it's just open, I mean, there's nothing to stop anything. My yard isn't even the best one. I've got a chain link fence. A musk turtle can just walk right through that. You know, and just wave on his way out.
I think you had told me at one point, even before this, about like what was it, sheet metal and digging sheet metal down in the ground. Is that something you learned, or like what made you come up with that?
Well, the sheet metal thing, that was at the house I was living at before this, where I was just renting. Whoever had lived there before, I don't know if they had turtles or what, but all along the fence line, they had taken like roof tin and just put it all along the bottom of the fence line. So never really had to worry about anything getting out there. I mean, I think that there's certain things you can do. And one thing is, depending on the size of your turtle. So if you have like musk turtles and spotted turtles and all that stuff, you need to have a complete solid wall around your enclosure. It needs to go at least 6 inches into the ground. Turtles that small, you might want to, cover it with something and create a lot of hides for predators.
Hey, let me tell you what I had covering my enclosure. I had like metal, like a sheet, but the gaps were like this big. So the only thing I can think, and these are yearling box turtles, it flooded, and then the box turtle went between the like things in the thing, and he was like,
yeah. When the water level rises, man, they'll all kinds of turtles will peace out when that happens, man. I mean, I have that happen all the time, like where if one of my drains isn't working on a tub and it overflows, like they're gone. So you have to, if it's an aquatic setup, make sure you have overflows. I usually have 2 just in case one plugs up.
What do you use for your overflows?
Dude, some of them are as simple as taking a drill and putting some holes in something. I mean, You can make it complicated, but if there's a problem, then it becomes a complicated problem. So I mean, I keep it simple, stupid, and just I make sure that there's holes in some of the tubs so they don't have anything that overflows. And then the main thing with turtles and tortoises is making solid walls they can't see through. If they can see through it, then they're gonna want to get to whatever's on the other side of it. So that's like one thing whenever I have the money, I'm probably gonna do at least something to the bottom part of my fence, because my sulcata has full room of the backyard, and as I build enclosures, it gets smaller and smaller. But he does have moments where he's like, oh, I'm gonna walk the fence for 10 minutes, just walking it, and the only reason he feels that way is because he can see through it.
Yeah.
So if I were to do like a 2 foot high, even if it was like decent, like plywood or something, something to block his view, that would be good enough, and he wouldn't really be motivated to do that. So the main thing you want to do is create a visual barrier. You don't want them interested in trying to get outside of their enclosure and outside their yard. Yeah. Another thing you can do is, if you have aquatics and there is a chance that they're going to get out, I learned this at the old house, man, just make a hole in the ground that collects water so that when it rains, they're going to be in that, because it's going to be a little thing full of water. And like, if you're missing a turtle, they're going to be in that. The other thing you can do is,
because they just naturally go to the water, or
yeah, turtles have a really good sense for where water is. I think they can smell it, and they also know the lay of the land. So wherever is lowest is a good place to build that, because they're going to know where water collects, and downhill is the direction of water. So whenever stuff gets loose, I kind of know what areas to look in. You can also do like, I put pieces of tin and boards and stuff in the back of my yard for snakes. But it's also a good place to look for small turtles that get loose, is they'll get underneath stuff.
Yeah, or they can head to the bathroom where the tub is. Dude, my wife she'll tell you, I've had my musk since college as a tiny, so over 10 years. And when we first met, I would never forget, she was over for the first time, and this turtle, like in just I think a 20-gallon tank, had the mesh on top, and everything, and I'd be dang, man, I can't count how many times with my hands that thing's got out somehow. I've even had to put a boot on top, and still has gotten out. I remember the first time she came over, she went into the bathroom, and I heard this scream. I was like, and she was like, "What is that?" And literally, I went in there right by the toilet. That turtle was just sitting right by that toilet. I'm like, you son of a gun, how in the
could
world?
Be worse. I had
all the way across.
I had a 4-foot Pueblan milk snake get loose in a house for like months. Like, I thought that thing was dead or gone. And then one day, like, my roommate came downstairs and he was like, "Do you have a snake?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "There's one in the bathtub." And I went upstairs, and a Pueblan milk snake looks pretty intimidating if you don't know what it is. It looks like a coral snake. And there it was. It was just in the bathtub.
You have a snake? No. What?
Hey, I do want to share some of these comments that I'm getting.
Okay.
So I got Evan sharing about one of his lost animals.
I'm sure we're gonna have plenty of good stories.
Yeah, it sucks losing box turtles, man, because you can lose a box turtle in your yard and not find that thing for months or a year. I mean, the best thing to do is look when it rains. If he lives in a neighborhood, especially this time of year, like, and you get like a nice thunderstorm, just drive around your neighborhood, man, put on a Joe Rogan podcast and do laps.
Let's see, we got...
Russians are the worst. Yeah, they are. I love my Russians, but they just drill a hole. Like, they'll look where the fence is and just drill a hole down underneath and then out the other side.
We got some suggestions on how to better be prepared. Jordan says to get hawk-proof wire. I have to look into that.
Who sells hawk-proof wire?
Yeah. That's the only predator I'm worried about currently in my.
Yeah, I mean, if you have open tops and they're really small and the tub or whatever that they're in is open enough, it's a threat. I have hawks over my yard, and I mean I've got videos where they're screaming in the background, and I have to like sit there and wait till they're done. But mine are red-shouldered hawks, so they're eating things like skinks and snakes and stuff like that. Now they have come and I've sat on the fence and looked at my pond. I've never lost a turtle to them at all.
I have that same problem. I don't know what kind of hawks I have, but they'll sit on my fence, and I go out there with like a baseball bat, like
yeah. Now that said, my baby turtle stock tank, I have made like a mesh top for, and it's really heavy and all that. So that the idea is using common sense. You know, a hawk isn't going to fly off with a sulcata tortoise. It's not going to fly off with a box turtle unless you're talking about a really big hawk or like an eagle or something. No. But if you're creating hides and creating places where the turtle can feel comfortable and not be out in the open in front of those predators, you're going to cut down on the risk of that, you know, a lot. But yeah, if there's somebody manufacturing hawk-proof wire, send me that link.
We also got another suggestion from YouTube saying to use Nest cameras. I'm curious, Greg, do you have cameras set up?
I'm looking at getting them. I'm trying to like, now that I like make a little bit of money off YouTube, I try to let it pay for, you know, upgrades for enclosures and stuff like that. But I think cameras are probably next. There's kids in my neighborhood, and kids get curious and they want to see turtles, but at the same time, it's really easy for some kid, if he knows I'm not home, to come over and try and swipe something. So I'm probably going to set up like a 8 or 10 camera system all around the house. I've been looking at them at Costco and different places. Up until I mean, I still have him, but I have a pit bull. He's just getting like really, really old. So dogs are a really good security system, especially if you can trust them around your turtles, because, you know, like I have this big black pit bull running around in my backyard, and like you can't convince anybody to go back there.
So you think
oh, sorry, go ahead, man.
I was gonna say, so you think as long as you make it as naturalistic and things that, you know, enrichment and things that, you know, would suffice for them and be comfortable, and it would to keep their attention, you know, just like any other turtle, is probably best, you know, especially outside, to limit the possibility of, you know, them trying to wander off and trying to think outside the box, so to speak.
Yeah. I think, I mean, depending on the species, but I think the more stuff you can put in there. I mean, dude, sometimes I will just find all kinds of garbage laying along the fence line to my yard, on whether it's in my neighbor's yard or mine. But like, if a tree fell and the bark, I can peel the bark off of that tree, I'm going to put that all in my box turtle enclosures. I've put it in like Russian tortoise enclosures, all kinds of, you know, like pieces of wood or rocks. And, you know, like the more stuff I can put in there, the more places they're going to hide. I mean, I actually like it when I walk up to my enclosures and I can't see all my turtles, because I know they're hiding and I know they're behaving normally. But, you know, I mean, it just depends on your area too. I mean, like I said, where I used to live, raccoons were really, really bad. And I lost, you know, an entire collection I'd had, you know, since I was a kid. And, you know, so then moving forward, when I kept turtles there, I did have to make everything raccoon proof. And, you know, here, that's not really an issue. Like where I live in a neighborhood full of rednecks with guns. 4th of July is terrifying. And so, and everybody has like chickens and stuff in my neighborhood. So there's not a lot of raccoons left here at all. We've got a lot of house cats, and house cats don't really mess with turtles, and they do a pretty good job of running off pretty much everything else, for better or worse. So it's you really have to custom tailor it to where you live.
Yeah.
You had a couple people give you some suggestions since you're on the market for cameras.
Okay.
Glenn says that he uses Ring doorbells.
Okay.
I love our Ring.
Matthew says if you have old cell phones laying around, try Mini-Thing.
Okay. That sounds cool.
Evan says he uses Wise cams indoors.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and put the plug out for the cameras that I use.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a bundle from Best Buy. They're called Blink, Blink, and they're made by generally the same people that make the Ring. Like they're sold on Amazon and stuff, and they're all wireless. So they have a battery that lasts like 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
So you just have to be able to connect to your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. Because if I'm in Thailand for a month, I want to be able to check my cameras and see what's going on at my house instead of being overseas and sweating for 30 days worrying about what's going on at home.
Right. No, I mean, I would definitely suggest them. My wife's car got broken into a couple months back, and I was in the market for cameras immediately, and I didn't have time for the wired ones that take installation. And so I did the Blink, and I have to admit, I'm pretty satisfied. They have motion detectors on them and everything. And so I just like the
yeah. And we have a Nest too for the inside, and then we have the Ring outside, and I mean it's pretty much, you know. Well, I was gonna ask, leading from last week, with Chance, I know you said you grow and have most of your own feed. Is there anything exterior that you don't that you get from like a pet shop or some kind of bigger distributor?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, I'm a big promoter of natural foods and all that stuff, but I do. I mean, if you go look on my shelf, there's, Zoomed Aquatic Turtle Diet, there's Missouri Aquatic Turtle, Hikari Sinking Carnivore. So I do use that stuff, but I use that stuff as like a supplement, as like a Flintstones vitamin for, compared to the bulk of what they're eating.
Or even a natural diet. Is there anything you have to get anywhere else?
Oh yeah. I mean, I have to go to the farmer's market, once a week or twice a week, depending on which turtles I'm feeding. So if it's for tortoises and the cooters and everything, then, I'm getting all kinds of greens, colored greens. I mean, mustard greens, you name it. But then for the musk turtles, map turtles, I'm getting a lot of like freeze-dried krill, shrimp, freshwater shrimp, crayfish. For the bigger turtles like the giant musk and the alligator snappers, I'm getting mussels and clams. And when they cut up catfish, there's a lot of parts they don't really use. So I use like the heads. I'll use like they call them catfish nuggets, and so I'll use a lot of that stuff. But
so
I don't use
snapper. You still don't feed him junk. You still feed him some good quality food, even though he can just eat anything.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people think of them as these like garbage disposals because that's what people have called them in the hobby for years. But it's usually because it's a guy that's more into monitor lizards and boas than they are into turtles, and so they're just like, oh, he eats rats, and then they have some overweight alligator snapper with an ugly shell, because they've been feeding it something that it's not made to digest, and a big alligator snapper in the wild probably eats a handful of rodents in its entire life, and even less birds in its entire life. So feeding them chicken and rodents doesn't make any sense. They're going to eat what they find on the bottom of a river. So they're going to find, they're going to be eating all kinds of fish, catfish and everything, but they're also going to be eating a lot of clams, mussels. Crayfish make up the bulk of their diet throughout their entire range. Crayfish are a huge item. I mean, and so those are the things that I feed them. So they're getting a lot of crayfish. They're getting a lot of clams and mussels, and I do apple snails. I
got to ask this because I tried to feed my terrapins clams that I'm assuming now were too big for them.
Yeah.
Do you just like throw whole clams in there, or like?
So yeah, there's a few different clams that I use. So for like my loggerhead musks and my musk turtles, I'm using the little invasive Asian clams, and you can find those anywhere, and you can actually grow them yourself. You can put them in a container with sand and a bubbler, and they'll just reproduce on their own. And they're like little tiny yellow clams. And so for the musk turtles, obviously, you're not going to give a full size one of those clams to, a 2-inch, little loggerhead. You got to like give them a little one, but as they get bigger, it kind of doesn't really matter. They not only have the jaw power to crush the shell, but they also know how to pop the hinge, the muscles that are the hinge of the clam or whatever. Yeah. So you'll see them like kind of roll it around in their mouth and work it over until they can pop it open, and then they'll eat the meat out. Or if they're big enough, they just crush it up and they eat it like, Pringles. So, but yeah, I try to custom tailor it to the size of the turtle. And then certain turtles, like Diamondback terrapins, for example, it's kind of an ontogenetic change. So they're going to start off eating kind of certain things, males and females eating certain things, and then as they get older, map turtles are the same way. The females are going to kind of drift off towards mollusks, and then the males are going to stick with that diet of like little invertebrates and insects and tiny crustaceans, and then the females are just going to, they're going to go eat those, things with hard shells on them and get big heads. So
Yeah.
I don't remember off the top of my head how big your Diamondback terrapins are. So some of them maybe headed that direction, but aren't ready for a full size clam yet.
Yeah,
but,
this girl is almost 6 inches.
Okay, she's
so
getting there.
I was thinking she would be all right, but those clams ended up dying in there before she.
Yeah, you'd be better. You'd be better to give her something like some freeze dried krill, some crayfish. Those things have the hard shells, they have the chitin, and there's a lot of calcium in there, and it'll kind of give them the wear and tear on their little plates that they're just starting to develop, and it'll be good for them too. And then as they get bigger, you can start to introduce, try introducing the clams, and they'll enjoy that. And you can do little snails and stuff too.
Not to shift gears, but I've always wondered, how do you, with the outside enclosures, how do you keep the filtration and all that stuff clean? Like, is it just more of a natural kind of?
Yeah, it depends on which one. I actually was just talking to Jordan that you guys, Jordan D, that you guys just had on a few weeks ago. We were talking about
the real turtle Jordan.
Yeah, we
he just commented too.
We were talking about like my cooter pond, and I run 2 pumps and filters on that one, and I was telling him it's kind of like putting a V8 in a Civic. Is what I did for that pond, just because of the sheer amount of turtles and stuff that are in there. So like one pump is like a 1,200 gallon per hour, and it's mainly for creating current, but it goes to like a pond guy, big 350 pump or filter in the ground. It's got a UV clarifier, and then the other one is a pump that has a UV clarifier built into it, and then it's routed around into like a little spillway filter, and then that has plants growing out of it, so the plants are also feeding on what's coming through the filtration. And then for the alligator snapping turtle pond, it's literally just a pump, like a 800 gallon per hour, and it's running. And then where the output is it's going through a whole bunch of plants. So as that gets rerouted through those plants are sucking up all those nutrients. And those alligator snappers, I mean, realistically, they're not really eating anything that makes a bunch of gross waste. If you were to look at the bottom of their pond, it's just a bunch of broken shells and stuff. So that's kind of what comes out the other end. It's not really a lot left after they eat it. What's that?
How big is his tank?
It's a 18 by 8 foot pond. It's like 3 foot deep at one end and then like 1.5 foot at the other.
How much does that bad boy weigh?
Oh, the turtle?
Yeah.
60...
Same one in the picture?
Yeah. There's one of me holding one.
And I have to say, he has more than one, so don't let.
Yeah, I have a few. So.
Well, I'm referring to the one in the picture because that's probably
the one in the picture. The one in the picture that for this podcast, I believe was that was field herping, and that was a female down in South Georgia, and that's a Swanee alligator snapper, and she was probably 60 pounds.
Yeah. Nice.
But
you brought it up, so I'm going to bring it up, Greg. Yeah. You brought up that it was a Swanee alligator snapping turtle.
Right.
There's actually some people that I've encountered, and you've taught me some things, that there's different subspecies of snapping turtles. I'm going to use that for you to tell us a little bit about them to get into what I told you I really want to talk about. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, fair enough. I can do that. All right. I can talk alligator snappers all day till everybody's getting up and leaving,
Hey.
So yeah, there's it's actually 3 full-blown species. They're not subspecies, and it was a paper in 2014 basically said that all the ones from the Texas drainages, like the Trinity, all the way over to about Pensacola, Florida, are the ones that have been the Teminckii, the Macrocheles teminckii that everybody's always known them as, and those are now the Western, and then the Apalachicola, Ochlockonee, and Choctawhatchee, I think that's how you say those. And Econfina rivers are the central assemblage, and those became known as Macrocheles apalachicola. And then all that was left over in Florida, which is the Sewanee drainage, became Macrocheles swannaiensis. And the Sewanees ended up being the ones that were the most genetically distinct. And I mean, they have like a different skull and head, and the shape of the shell is different. I mean, after seeing them in person, and I've seen all the alligator snappers, and when I see the Sewanees, I mean, there's a lot different about them. But I mean, they're different really in every single river drainage because they don't cross land. They don't spread to other river drainages. So, I mean, the Apalachicola is the next drainage over from there, you know, is mobile drainage. And I mean, you can visually see a difference. I mean, the ones where I live, the ones in the Flint River drainage, like where the ones you see in most of my videos, they're the most molluscivorous, I guess is what they say when they eat mollusks. And they're like loggerhead musk turtles. Their heads have adapted to eating mollusks. They have a short, stocky head and a thicker skull. Then as you go west, it starts to get more tapered and a little bit more concave on the top of the head.
You have a question. Matthew wants to know, what does he have in Indiana?
So in Indiana would be the Western. And Indiana would be like part of one of their more extreme northern ranges. I mean, I think it's only southern Indiana that has them. But they would still be greater Mississippi drainage. So they would be the Westerns. And
which is your favorite?
What is my favorite?
Yeah.
I really like the Sewanees because, I mean, every time I see one, I mean, I pick up on different things. Like their skin is different. Their eyes are different. They have different tubercles on them. I mean, but I mean, I also like the hometown hero, man. I like the ones out of the Flint River because I love seeing just the build of them. I like the bright yellow that all the adults turn with age. And so probably my favorites are the ones that I interact with the most and I see the most. I'm most fascinated though by the Sewanees just because like it's just, when something has the opportunity to just be a part of something but go in its own genetic direction, and they've obviously done that. It's really cool because we're kind of in the middle of something's evolution, but we're several million years away from wherever it's going. So it's barely noticeable to us now, but if we were able to see that far ahead in the future, hopefully they're still around. That maybe they become even more distinct or something totally different. So I think that's cool.
See in the pet trade too.
The ones you see in the pet trade are, I mean, 99% just Westerns, because of the sheer amount of them that were in those markets in Louisiana and Arkansas. When they were doing it during the food trade, a lot of those guys, once they started shutting down the commercial food trade and Campbell's quit making the turtle soup out of alligator snappers, a lot of those guys became alligator snapping turtle farmers. And you had farms in Arkansas and northern Louisiana, and you have John Richards, who is like the biggest one out in Missouri. And those guys crank them out. Once you get those turtles programmed and they're doing well, they'll lay eggs, one clutch every year, and they'll do real well.
What's a normal clutch look like, and the mature wise and age, and how's all that usually work?
Well, like a lot of turtles, the older they get, the more fertile they get. So the older they get, the more the higher success rate for hatching. These turtles can also store sperm. They can store sperm from multiple males so that they have genetic diversity in a clutch of eggs. So you're looking at, let's say your average female alligator snapper weighs 40 or 50 pounds. She's probably going to lay around 20 something eggs. Now compare that to, a common snapping turtle that can lay almost twice that many. Alligator snappers don't really lay that many eggs, but the eggs are so much bigger. They're like a sulcata egg, but they take a lot longer to hatch. So they lay in late May or early June, and then the eggs hatch in late September, early October.
Oh, wow. Big gestation. Huh.
Yeah, but when they come out, they're little tiny versions of the adults. I was out herping. I was herping with my buddies one night last year, and one of the best nights of my life. And my buddy Noah I was with, shout out Noah Fields, man. He looks down and he sees something in the sand. He's like, "What is that?" And I turn around. I was like, "That looks like a turtle nest." And then we see this little head come out, and it was an alligator snapping turtle nest hatching. But there was also fire ants just streaming their way into the nest, because once those turtles come out and they can smell that yolk, the fire ants will just go for them. So we had to like kind of rescue these turtles and get them down to the water before the fire ants. And I remember pulling them out, and when they're one of those turtles where when a nest hatches, once one hatches, it just gets them all going and they're just exploding out of there. So they were just exploding out of there as quick as we uncovered them. And I remember there was one of them I picked up, and then his head was sticking out of the egg, and I was holding the egg, and on video he just comes right out of the egg, like in my hand. And then we carry him down to the water and let him go. And it was super cool though.
Now tell me, I mean, that gets into what I wanted to talk about even from the beginning about was encounters. So was that probably the coolest encounter or special encounter, or I mean, you can gauge whatever you want on encounters wise, but
I would say, yeah, that's probably the overall coolest, just because like, I don't know if that'll ever happen again in my life. I can go out
and you get to rescue them, not just see them hatch, man.
Exactly. I mean, I could go out every night around that time of year, every year for the rest of my life, and I don't know if I'd ever stumble upon that again. So like
a huge gestation time, man.
What's that?
Go ahead, Ed.
No, I was saying even with that huge gestation time, like I didn't realize it was that long either. So I mean, you got not just a quick window like the Diamondbacks do. You got a nice little.
Well, and they can be like, sometimes we get a drought, and where we live there's clay, so like they could have hatched inside that nest chamber, but they're just entombed by hard clay. It's like basically concrete till it gets a good enough rain. And so yeah, it kind of depends on where they lay them. Like that particular nest was laid in sand, which is obviously more optimal for them hatching, but a lot of times they will just lay them in like just the hardest clay you've ever seen.
I had called you Father Nature. That's what I had said.
That's the only father I am, just Father Nature.
Hey, like Captain Planet, man, out there saving maybe alligator turtle.
Yeah, that was definitely one of those where like, you felt good about yourself after that. You're like, man, we did a good thing.
No, there's any other encounters, man? Like any other experiences?
Oh yeah,
even if it's out of the country or whatever you might have it, man. What was?
Yeah, I mean, and I think every time I go to Thailand is awesome because it's just such a different place. So I like that a lot. One of my favorite encounters in Thailand, and it wasn't necessarily herping, because every time I've gone to herp there, they've eaten so many turtles in Southeast Asia that like, if any of us goes there, you're looking at like this canal with all these plants and logs going in. You're like, oh man, there's going to be some turtles here. You won't find a single one. You might see a monitor lizard, but you're not going to see any turtles. There's just hardly any left. So this last trip, I really tried to focus on herping for turtles, and it never happened. But I did go to a couple places that were like more like nature preserves, and I did get to see like a big basking female snail eating turtle. And if you live in the U.S., I mean, there's nobody really with those in captive collections. There's no zoos here that I know of that are really doing anything with them. So to get to see one in basically a wild scenario there, I was super stoked. And it was a big fat one with a huge head, and they're kind of like a cross between like a musk turtle and a map turtle. So they're just really cool looking. And then my favorite recent experience would probably be last week. I went back down to a spring-fed creek in South Georgia, and I was snorkeling for Barber's map turtles because I wanted to go back. I just got a GoPro, and I was like, I got to get this underwater, because that's the experience, is the way it looks when you swim up to them. And they're a little bit curious because it doesn't happen to them very often that a person swims up to them. So they'll kind of sit there and stare at you. And so I dove down for one, and as I was diving down, it was in like 8 feet of water. There's like a big branch, and I get down to the branch, and there's the one that I saw, but there was another big female sitting right behind her. And I got the whole thing on camera, and I'm like really stoked to like show it. But I dived down, there was 2 female barbers down there, and they're both sitting there looking at me, and I pick one up and I film it, and then I release it, and I go back and I show the other one. I think those are like my favorite experiences, because when you're underwater with them, it's fun to walk in a creek and see them and pick them up, but to be down there on their level, like eye to eye, and really seeing things the way they do, That's probably my favorite. I wish I could hold my breath longer, you know?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, definitely, man.
I'm going to ask, man. I've been holding it in. I'm really interested in your wealth of knowledge on musk turtles. So
Okay.
I'll go ahead and say this. I'll probably never own an alligator snapping turtle. I'm hoping we'll change that in terms of being able to hold one day or finding one with you. But in terms of musk turtles, what has been like your favorite experience with musk turtles? And then we'll go into kind of like your experience with the ones you found, I guess.
So I mean, my favorite experience with musk turtles, if I go back to the beginning and we talk about Florida and being a kid, is it was harder to find stink pots than it was striped mud turtles. I still have an extreme fondness for striped mud turtles. I have them, you know, I have several and I love them to death. But I remember when I was a kid, it was really hard to find stink pots. And where I lived, I was further south than like where loggerheads live. So I'd only see loggerheads in like field guides and stuff. So I was really fascinated.
I'm in Loggerhead area and I've never seen one in the wild. So,
oh man, you got to look. They're there. So like I would go look for stink pots, and then so I got really fascinated with those. And then when I moved to Georgia, I think my first couple times in a creek, I thought I was finding really ugly stink pots, but it turned out they were just like not that colorful striped neck musk turtles. And I kind of blew it off for a while, and then at one point I got it in my head. I was like, I want to look for loggerhead musks. I always thought they were cool. And it took me probably a solid year of figuring out where I need to look, what I need to look for, the type, because growing up in the deep South, like you don't associate a lot of turtles with swift flowing cold water, but that's what they like. And it's like, I mean, the water can be running hard and they can like hang on to those little rocks down there. So I pretty much as soon as I found loggerheads was also around the same time I found striped necks. And I just was like, these are the coolest turtles ever. I mean, especially when you see what they start from is these little nuggets, and then they're really cool looking juveniles that still have like your average musk turtle shape. But then when you get the adults and they grow those huge heads and they have those little beady eyes, and they're just the coolest. And there's nothing like them. And if you're looking at it from a captive perspective, it's really easy to house them. It's really easy to take care of them. They just need like clean flowing water. They need personal space because they will kind of pick at each other. But like you said, you may never have an alligator snapper. You'd like to hold one. But to me, an alligator snapping turtle is the largest of the giant musk turtles. They have a musk turtle lower jaw. Their skull is shaped very, very similar to a musk turtle. So when I see little musk turtles, I just see so many little parallels. But like, it's not really feasible for the average person to have an alligator snapping turtle. I mean, and most people get them as babies and they keep them to about 6 inches and they're over it. Musk turtles, on the other hand, they get about 4 inches. A huge one might be the size of an iPhone. And but anybody can house that. Anybody can set them up in a decent sized tub. They have personality. They'll come running over when they see you. They're goofy. I mean, they're awesome. And then likewise in the wild, I can go back to certain creeks and I can walk them and I'll see the exact same musk turtles I see every time I go there. And they're like old homies, I just like, hey, what's up, man? Like I'll see the same male running around with one eye, and he's always there. And it's really cool. And I think that's when, I really wanted to start getting focused on the conservation end of stuff. And I'll never be, Jordan Gray flying around the world saving radiated tortoises, but I can create education through videos and educate people on the importance of buying their musk turtle captive bred versus buying it from somebody who went and collected a bag of them in one day.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Like, with all the, do you purposely, captive breed, or is it something that just happens and then you sell them, or like how do you work, your animals?
I originally, I think around a few years ago, I wanted to be like a turtle breeder, and I wanted to be like, I used to like make a hashtag GregsTurtleHaven or something like that. But I also was kind of seeing like the writing on the wall as far as what's happening with turtles, and the fact that we're losing so many of our turtles, even here in the US, and that's because of the demand overseas for our turtles. Yeah. And the reason that happened is because people put a price on their head. And so I decided, just for me, that I don't want to sell turtles. I don't want to be a part of that. So the turtles that I do breed intentionally, I breed loggerhead, stripe neck, the intermediate musks, which, I mean, up until a couple of years ago when that paper came out, I just thought I had some different looking loggerheads. So now I know they're intermediates, but I had them separate anyway. And then I'm wanting to get more into breeding map turtles and stuff because they're also, rare. But so now I breed them more for, captive propagation to I just want to try and build a base, at least on my end, of captive bred musk turtles. Under my permits, I have state permits to be able to have the alligator snappers and a lot of the stuff that I have. And one of the things on there is I can't sell turtles. It's like, because I have an education permit, and I'm allowed to have these protected species under the idea that I'm educating with them. If they think I'm out there hawking turtles all over the place, they're like, well, why do we give you that permit? So a lot of people always ask me if I sell turtles, and I have to tell them no. And that's why is I don't want to violate my permit, and I just don't want to sell turtles. Now, I can give turtles to a friend or something like that, but I'm not really at that point yet where I've got enough that I'm going to be like giving stuff away all over the place. I know that's going to blow up my inbox too when I said I give turtles away. Oh, they're free?
He made it very clear he's not at that place right now, though. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, what I would like to do is hopefully, whether it's through YouTube or Instagram or whatever, is find a network of people that are like-minded and keeping turtles in the same way and have the same values. And, we can all share together. And together we can all, by doing the same thing, we can all create this base for building something for, captive bred turtles and keeping things from being, poached and sent overseas.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I do want to post this because Jordan had a question for you.
Yes, I do. So this year I did start marking and tagging turtles. I was a part of several surveys. I've done surveys with the Santa Fe River Turtle Project, which you should go do. And then
with me?
Yeah, it's right by you, man. You need to get in those springs.
I know,
and
man.
Be a part of that. So I was a
Get me
part
in
of
contact
theirs.
with them. I'd 100% do that. No snakes.
Yeah. And then I also do the Urban Turtle Project. I'm wearing their hat, and my buddy Andy in Birmingham does that. And they all mark turtles, and I've made videos featuring it and everything. And I was talking with my friend Viviana and my friend Grover, and she has Texas turtles, and then Grover he did it as part of his like graduate work, and I think he still does it. And that there was kind of the idea that I can film all these videos of finding all these turtles, and that's cool, but what is it really for if I'm not able to leave some kind of information behind? And so I started getting involved with a group called Finding the Flint, and they work with the Upper Flint River. And I started an Instagram called Flint River Turtles. And so what I've started doing is when I find a turtle, I'd make a very, very small notch. I mean, it's really visible only to me or somebody that knows to look for it. I just do it in just the keratin of the marginal scutes, and it's just a little line. So if you know what to look for, there's a little line, and then that individual marginal scute has a number assigned to it. Let's say like the right side of the shell is 10, 20, 30, 40, 60, likewise all the way around. And the other side is 100, 200. So by combining those numbers, you can mark them in any, configuration and get an almost unlimited, amount of ways to number a turtle. So I started doing that. I've marked somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 or 50 loggerhead musk turtles, 20 something cooters, 3 or 4 alligator snappers. Sometimes I forget to, I'll like film a turtle and be like, oh, that was cool. And then I'm like, I forgot to mark it.
Yeah.
And I think the last few times I remembered to mark them was when I went out with my buddy Gabe, and we would catch a turtle and he'd be like, oh yeah, do you want to mark this? And I'd be like, oh yeah. So I'm getting in the groove of it, but I have like a little formatted thing on my phone. So I take pictures of the turtles. Also, any particular things. Are they missing a leg, missing an eye? Is there a crack in the shell? Take pictures of all that stuff. I also go in and even on your photo menu on your phone, you can edit and then write in information. So I can write in that it's a male loggerhead musk turtle found on this date in blah, blah, blah creek, and then save that. And then, there's all that information saved right there.
So we've talked about these musk turtles. Now I'd like you to kind of explain about this intermediate musk turtle.
I mean, I wish I'm not the guy that wrote the paper, so I can't explain. Right. I can't explain everything. And then, ResearchGate, they put those papers up, and then they want you to pay to go read them. So right. I only got one crack at it when it first came out. But what I know about it is they're from a range in southern Alabama and the northern Florida Panhandle. A lot of the Choctawhatchee River drainage, the Yellow River, possibly I think the Kanika and the Escambia are the same river. So I think that one, Econfina, and so all that kind of Florida Panhandle area, kind of west of Tallahassee, is kind of the area. And originally they thought that what that was that it was the peltifer, the striped neck musk turtle, and the loggerhead musk turtle range meeting right there, because they do kind of have traits of both and like some weird characteristics of both. But then when they did the genetic work, they came up as being their own individual, they had their own individual genetics, that they were not a combination of two things, that they were something independent. And so that's when they realized, like, oh, these musk turtles in these river drainages are, it's kind of like the alligator snappers. They were like, oh, they're genetically different. And being genetically different, you can kind of look at them and see some mild differences in both pattern and shape of the head, shape of the shell. It's very slight. And you really have to you basically have to look at a lot of loggerhead musk turtles to be able to look at these and be like, oh, this is different, So, but
how did you get those ones?
At one point I was living down the street from a guy, and he was an exporter, and he was always getting loggerheads and striped necks and eastern mud turtles and striped mud turtles, and he would just get them from guys and he would export them. But he would hire me to come over, and because this guy was like super overweight, super unhealthy, and so like he couldn't even move. I remember one time he couldn't reach his remote control so he could watch Fox and Friends, and he had to call me to go get his remote control and so he could watch his Fox News, and he gave me $20. So I would go over there and I would sex his turtles and do health checkups and everything, and then
yeah, that didn't sound right, but you sex his turtles.
It's nerd stuff, man. So like I would sort them for him, and then anything that was not deemed good enough to sell, he would be like, he'd give me money and he'd be like, well, if you want them, you take them, So I ended up at one point, just through that guy, I ended up with hundreds of musk turtles at one point, just because of and that was, like I said, that was one of the things that opened my eyes to what was really going on with how turtles are being sold and collected and everything. And in the beginning, I didn't think I was naive in the beginning, and I remembered thinking that like, oh, well, people just want like one pair of turtles or a male and two females, and I thought that that's what it was, and I didn't think that it was bad. And then I saw that the demand was actually coming from Asia, and they were wanting hundreds and hundreds at a time, and that's what people were doing.
I have to tell you, Jordan came in clutch for you. He provided the link to the.
There it is.
So if you come back to the comments, you'll be able to get it, Greg.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I'll go save it on my phone.
Yeah.
I'll screen grab it as I go. So but yeah, so I ended up with these loggerheads that just looked different. They had different looking faces and beaks and everything. And I just remember they looked really cool. And the only thing I knew about them was that they came from Florida. And so I'd set them off to the side and put them in their own waterland tub. And I was like, well, those look cool. They have this different kind of appearance and look to them. And I was like, I'm just going to breed for that. And so I had like a male and several females. And right away, I was just getting eggs, and, at least a clutch a year. And I think I gave away one or two early on before that paper came out, just because I was like, oh, these are cool looking loggerheads. And I gave one to somebody. But now that I know what they are, now I've definitely, separated them. And I'm like actually looking at setting up another setup pretty soon, because a lot of those juveniles I hatched out, now they're, breeding size adults. So
yeah.
I gotta ask, is it even more different than like the Florida loggerheads from like the Georgia loggerheads?
Yeah, so that's a fair way of looking at the difference. So like if I were to show you a loggerhead from up where I'm close to the upper Flint River drainage, if I were to show you a loggerhead from there and I were to show you one from Itchituckney, you would notice distinct differences. The one from the Itchituckney ones have almost like 3 keels to their shell, whereas the ones in the upper Flint just have like a low, very mild keel down the middle.
I've
the
also
pattern,
heard the
pattern on the head is
darker.
different. Yeah. Ours up here darker. They have a darker background color on the skin. Instead of having little spots, sometimes they'll have like little wiggle shapes. But they kind of run the gamut up here. There's no standard look for them. It seems to vary from spot to spot. But you go down to Florida, and they all kind of look very similar. So that's a good way to kind of make it relative for how the intermedius looks different. Because I know that the intermedius, like the ones I have, look different from some of the other ones I've seen people post pictures of, but they're all the same thing. So musk turtles as a whole are extremely variable. Striped neck musk turtles can be bright yellow, they can be olive green, they can be orange, they can have really well-defined stripes on them, or they can have broken stripes. Old ones can look like loggerheads where the pattern just gets all diffused. So
yeah, I know I want one of those big giant Mexican musks.
Yeah, I have one of those.
Man, I'm like, oh, every time, and I'm like, when I think about it, I'm like, I gotta do it justice though, so I gotta have like a pretty good size, enclosure and stuff like that. And I'm like, not ready for it yet, but one day, yes. I don't know how.
They're cool. I love mine.
They start. I mean, they're pretty much the same as a musk, and they just grow quicker, and it takes longer. Like how
they grow a little quicker, but I mean, they all kind of start off. They probably hatch out a little bit bigger than a regular musk turtle, but the growth rate on them is a little bit faster. But I mean, for the most part, you're just raising it like any other musk turtle. Yeah. They just get so much bigger, like they just grow and like never stop.
And they're just a little bit more meaner. Or no? Is it just
they're more like food motivated. Mine, I mean, will go crazy if he thinks there's food, and like just biting wildly and missing terribly, But like if I were to hold him, at first he'll kind of gape his mouth, but then after a while he kind of calms down and relaxes. It's not a turtle you want to get bit by. It would be horrific to get bit by it.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Type do you have? Because I know there's 2 different types of Mexican musk.
Yeah. There's the Staurotypus salvini and the Staurotypus tripricatus. Mine's the tripricatus. So the salvini is a little bit smaller. They max out around 8 inches. Mine's the tripricatus. They get up to about 14 inches. So you're looking at like a common snapper-sized musk turtle. Yeah.
The other one is the one they call vampire musks?
No, that's the Claudius.
Claudius. You're right.
Yeah. And they're often included with the 2 Mexican giant musks. They're oftentimes included with them, and I think they are somewhat related, but they're still fairly small, like a regular musk turtle. But they're psychotic and huge heads, and they have like crazy beaks and stuff.
Yeah. No, that's insane, man. I was curious. I have one other question. What's your experience with the flattened musks?
I've seen those in Alabama. They're extremely rare. I mean, it's weird because there's turtles that people will say are rare, but if you go in the habitat where they live, they're abundant. But their habitat is so specific. If you were to see a picture of flattened musk turtle habitat, you'll never forget it for the rest of your life, because as soon as you see that habitat, you're like, oh, I see why they live there. It's like this special type of rock that's just flat, and there's just layers and like different little, it's just the way their habitat is made. You're like, oh, I see exactly how this turtle became this. And they're awesome. They're amazing turtles. They might be, I think, federally protected now, so there's not really anybody working with them, and I don't really see that ever really happening. I think right now the idea is just to kind of keep them from getting wiped off the map up in Alabama. They have like a few little strongholds, but with development, A lot of times when people develop near those creeks, you're going to cause like a bunch of silt to go into those creeks. And so instead of having that rocky bottom, that very specific rocky bottom that they need, it's just going to get filled up with this sandy silt stuff. And now they don't have the habitat they need. They seem to only live where there's a certain type of small snails. And if something happens to that water quality and those snails are gone, well, then the musk turtles are gone. So they're kind of hanging on by a string. And it's sad to see it that way, but unfortunately, that's sometimes the price of progress for us. You know, we move forward and other stuff falls backwards.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is with the whole promoting thing. You know, getting out there and sharing your knowledge and stuff, so more people, especially with your kind of audience, you know, that's invaluable. I mean, you might not be able to do some of the things like how you said, you know, travel and do all this stuff, but you don't need.
Yeah.
You don't need to hop on a plane and travel to, you know, you can do exactly what you're doing now.
Well, exactly. And that's what, you know, my goal is to, you know, maybe people in Alabama, there's probably most of Alabama, the average people have never heard of a flattened musk turtle. If I could do it, I would love to make them a household name to where people not only know what a flattened musk turtle is, but if they live in Alabama, they should be proud that they have this amazing, really cool looking, you know, turtle that fits this little niche, you know. Yeah. Likewise, I try to do the same thing here in the state of Georgia. I really, especially this year, you know, with my t-shirt line and everything, I've been really trying to push the alligator snapping turtles, and really try to create an awareness around them that, you know, there's like a lot of mistaken ideas like, oh, they eat all the fish or something like that. And it's like, well, no, they actually eat very little fish as adults, and they're mostly eating other stuff. But I think if my end of the deal for making things better for turtles is that I can create more awareness and create an ability to go into people's homes or whatever, and even if it's like your average guy taking a dump and he happens to find one of my YouTube videos, but maybe he learned something in that 10 minutes, dude, I'm totally down, you know.
Dude, that's so like really peaceful time, man.
Yeah, that's where I'm trying to reach everybody is on the throne. So,
oh, come on now. that is some.
And that's prime time though, man. That's usually when I tune in, man. Especially
that's the best time to learn.
I think that's been the last two places I've been when I watched the Garden State Tortoise, Chris's last couple of videos. I still got to watch the baby turtle video, but
yeah. The Chris's videos are long, so there's a good chance you'll end up pooping at some point during those videos.
Right.
They're good though, man. Like he started making videos again, and I've been like super stoked. I watch all of them.
Yeah, I do too.
Chris has always been one of the guys where I've always been really inspired by like his setups, and I would always like it when like Kenan or somebody would go visit his place and show what he's doing. And I mean, I think if you're keeping turtles outdoors, then you definitely have to know who Chris is for sure.
Right. No, that's awesome, man. Ed, you got any further questions for the TurtleHaven man himself?
I did have one quick one about the whole when you're talking about the whole vet area and taking care of your turtles, you know, especially from that one guy and, you know, checking them over. Is it, you know, how often do you actually have to, you know, go to those extremes, or not even extremes, but just, you know, that typical vet kind of checking over? And, you know, do you ever find anything, you know, that, you know, you said you don't have that as much issues with you know, fungus and stuff, but like,
I would say the last few times I've gone to a vet with a turtle has been with wild turtles, you know, where I find something that actually has like an issue where it needs a vet. Most of the stuff I've dealt with here at my house is things that can be taken care of through dry docking, clean water, separating, those kind of things, and then they're fine. I have had a couple of, you know, where the turtle gets the little thing on the side of their head. I've been dealing with those since I was a kid, so I know how to like go through the process of getting that out and cleaning it, and when it's time to do it versus not. Sometimes box turtles will get them and then your body will reabsorb it. So you don't always have to go cut your turtle's head, you know, unless you absolutely have to. Generally though, like, yeah, I haven't had to take anything to a vet. I mean, and I can't even remember. Like I said, the last time I was taking stuff to my buddy Justin is a vet in Marietta, and he's really good. And I brought him an injured alligator snapping turtle. and then ended up taking it over to UGA, which has a really good reptile vet program as well. So I'm lucky to kind of live near places that do have that. So in the horrible event that I need to actually go to a vet, they are available. But like I said, luckily it hasn't come up. So
Good deal.
And that says something, because I've been to the vet a couple times with turtles. So
yeah,
well,
and
thing,
it's scary because the times where I have, it's like you hope that somebody in there knows what they're doing, because if you're a turtle person and you walk in with a turtle, you know that it's not a dog or a cat, and you walk in there and you're like, sometimes the people that work there, maybe they see turtles, maybe they don't, but sometimes, you walk into there and you're like, well, wait, do I know more than this person, that I just brought my animal to?
I was thankful that I was able to find a vet that deals with turtles and exotics. And I got to admit, the thing that made me at ease was when I walked in with my box turtle, a guy was walking out with a huge monitor lizard. And I was like, if she just dealt with this lizard, I'm 100% good. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a good experience. I also think that if you take the time ahead of time to look for a good, exotic vet that'll deal with turtles, it'll save you money in the long run, because emergency visits are way more expensive than finding that vet and just having them on standby if you should need them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would tell anybody listening to this or watching this that to do that, tomorrow, just make some phone calls, find somebody who's a qualified reptile vet. You never know when you're going to need them. Yeah. And, the way reptiles are is, they can either show that there's something wrong for a period of a few days, or you can walk out one day and something's wrong, and they were fine the day before. So sometimes you do have to make those emergency runs, but you want to know exactly where you're going.
Right. Right. Well, we are ending the podcast very soon. And typically what we like to do at the end, Greg, is to give you a chance to tell people how they can follow you if they don't, and what you're working on, man, what you're excited about coming up.
So if you want to follow me, you can follow me, GregsTurtleHaven on Instagram, GregsTurtleHaven on YouTube. Right now, just working on more videos, man. Just trying to keep putting out content, putting out stuff that is entertaining and educating, and hopefully I can, keep it entertaining without having to get bitten by too much stuff. I do have this Friday coming up is going to be another herping video where I'll be underwater in some crystal clear water with some turtles. This Sunday will be the video that was supposed to come out today, but my premiere crashed, so I wasn't able to get tonight's video out. So this Sunday, that one will be out. My videos come out Fridays, and then Sunday is typically like a bonus video day, and then Tuesday, because of Turtle Tuesday, is usually another upload day. So unfortunately, it didn't happen today, so it'll be on Sunday. But yeah, normally those are my days, and that's what I'm doing.
Hey, I got to ask this, man, and this is in preparation for what we've talked about when you come visit. How do you keep all those mosquitoes away at 3 a.m?
You don't. You just deal with it. I mean, you're in the South, man. That's just how it goes. I mean, just be glad you're not in Southeast Asia or like the Congo or something.
Right. Right.
You can put on, there's a few options for mosquito repellent that doesn't have DEET and is, made of natural stuff. You smell like a hippie. But
so you just go
I don't know.
all natural?
It's whatever. Most of the time, the places I'm at, because it's a lot of moving water, and it's only when you get into thick canopy and really thick, kind of muggy, humid areas, you start to run into mosquitoes. And that's usually not where I'm finding a lot. I'm usually moving enough to where I don't really get them. But at the same time, I've been doing this since I was a little kid. So I've been doing this for like 30 years. I just ignore them. I mean, the only things that get on my nerves are ticks. Like when I get home at night and I've got like a tick on my sack or something, like that just ruins the whole night.
I didn't even think about ticks, man. I got to be honest.
Ticks, golly, man.
Yeah, you got to check. You have I think it's 72 hours.
So. Yeah, man. I was like, I was thinking malaria, man, but now you got me thinking Lyme disease, man.
Well, there's a lot of diseases out there, man, and but I like I said, you can either be afraid of that stuff and not get out there and do it, or you can get out there and do it. I mean, you can wear long sleeves.
Hey, and just get the tick off your sack, man.
Yeah, just put on some Slayer, grab and pull, man.
Golly,
all right. I have one last question. I lied. What has been your favorite non-reptile that you found while herping?
My new favorite is sirens. I don't know if you've seen those, but they're these huge, long salamanders with little tiny legs, and I'd seen them in books and people's herping photos and stuff, but until I saw them in person, I was not really that impressed with them. And then when I saw them in person, I was like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen," because they're climbing around with these little legs, and they got these long eel-like bodies, and you're just seeing them eat stuff. And mud snakes like to eat them, and mud snakes are a cool snake. So if you're in the habitat of sirens, you're also in the habitat of mud snakes. So you're probably somewhere really cool. So yeah, they became like one of my new non-turtle favorites. I mean, other than that, I mean, there's a handful of snakes that I really like hognose, pine snakes.
I think I was more curious if you encounter like animals or birds or something other than a reptile.
Oh yeah. So non-reptile.
Yeah. And granted, a siren's not a reptile, but
I've come across bears a few times, wild pigs. Last week I came across these birds that really fascinate me. I couldn't tell you what they are. I still have to look them up, but they were like a heron type bird, but they had a lot of like orange on them, but then also some blue, and they weren't a night heron. It was a little group of 3 of them. And I mean, I've been out all the time my entire life. I've never seen these before. So I don't know what they were. I've got to go look them up. But and it was one of those where they were so flighty, like no pun intended, like that, like I knew I couldn't get close enough to them to get a phone. You're not going to get a great photo at a distance. So I knew there's no way I could get close to them. I was also in a kayak, so it's not like I can come paddling at them like, stay right there, So it was like one of those things I saw, and I was just like, that's insane.
Glenn asked a good question, and I was going to leave you be, but this is a good question. So I say it's a good question because here in Florida, Ed and I deal with this a lot in terms of non-native species. But Glenn wants to know, like, do you see any non-native stuff?
I mean, we don't have stuff like Florida has because we get such a legit winter that like you don't really have a lot of things that can persist. So as far as reptiles go, we don't really have like non-native reptiles that you're going to see, but we do have armadillos that are technically a non-native. We do have feral pigs. We have
Is that like a boar? Is that like a boar?
Yeah, it's kind of like a boar. There's also people have released like flathead catfish in some of the rivers, and those aren't native. And people do that just to do like the hillbilly hand fishing, the like noodling thing.
Yeah, noodling.
But yeah, other than that, I don't think we really. I mean, like Canadian geese or something. I don't know. We don't have. Thankfully, we don't have a lot of non-natives. Even though when I go down to Florida, it's cool to see all that stuff. There's like the 10% of it that's cool, and the 90% of it that's like, oh yeah, that actually sucks. But like, we don't have that up here. So I mean, red-eared sliders obviously are non-native, but nothing too extreme. I mean, I know South Georgia is starting to get tegus, but I haven't seen one of those yet.
I'm in North Florida and I haven't seen a wild tegu yet, but I'm sure they're here.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, the questions have stopped, and so I'll let you get back to whatever it is you were editing and doing. I'm very thankful you came on, man. We took an hour and 33 minutes of your time.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
Glad to do it.
Yeah.
No, man, it was definitely informative, for sure. And Ed was actually begging me. Now, I'm not going to say beg because that makes it sound great. He was pestering me for a while to get you on after he had saw your picture. He secretly really loves alligator snapping turtles.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. My whole life,
They're
man,
the best,
growing up. And from Ohio, being able to have them now down here now, and it's like, golly, man. One day, though. One day, because
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. But
yeah, they're
yeah,
incredible animals, and they've been my favorite since I was a little kid, and they're just like there's no turtle like them, and they're also unique only to North America. So I mean, there's just something really really special about those turtles, and they're unique. And,
yeah,
hard to
definitely.
beat them, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
No, man. Well, guys, we are at the end of our podcast. This has been Lucky episode 13. Pretty excited about next week. Even though it's your Turtle Tuesday, Greg, you might want to tune in. Next week, we have the Terrapin Conservation Initiative with Casey Leone. I think I said the last name right? It's Leone, right?
I think so.
Okay. Don't beat me up. Don't beat me up. I promise. So I'm pretty excited about that. I have a passion for terrapins. My buddy over here, he definitely has a passion for terrapins. And so I'm excited to see and hear about the work that they're doing, man. So, hey,
yeah.
As you said, hop in the comments and say something weird.
Yeah, exactly.
No doubt, man. We appreciate your support and just overall, just getting, just like how you get your information, your knowledge out there. I mean, we're in a different niche to where we're able to give other people a platform, but also just be also real and raw, and not having to make some kind of like facade scene and make it,
Yeah.
it just let it speak for itself and let whatever nuggets fall into people's hands that they can take and run with it and hopefully inspire or plant another seed in someone else's life, man. So you're doing just that, and you're doing more than what you think you are, and I think that because you wouldn't be continuing to do and put through the effort and each and every week. And we all know how much goes invested in that kind of stuff. So man, dude, you keep doing it, and you're going to be inspiring the next generation.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate you guys, man. I mean, what you guys are doing is, you're creating something every week. You have a different guest, and you have somebody sharing information, and conceivably, you're creating something every week that can last forever.
Yeah,
and that people can go back and look at and learn.
We run out of guests.
Well, I mean, it's so hard though too, because most people, like, when I go to podcasts and stuff, and from my background, I mean, it's like once a month, and it's like, man, like, I'm hungry for this stuff. I want to learn. I want this or that, and it takes someone like Cody's passion and and mine together also to combine, because I don't it's hard for just one person, but to put something out every week to give some people to chew on throughout the week, because we don't expect someone to listen to the whole hour and a half, but 10-15 minutes on the on the potty, a day. I mean, there you go. You're good to go.
Exactly.
You get emptied and you get filled up at the same time. So
my turtle brain does not shut off.
Yeah.
It probably sounds terrible. My wife's like, you wake up and the first thing you do is check on the turtles, and the last thing you checked on when you went to sleep was the turtles. And it's like, I'm sure there's other people that are like that just want to hear and talk to other people,
Yeah. I mean, I'll get off of here and I'll go grab a flashlight and walk around outside and see what everything's up to. So, like,
that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Go live so I can watch it later.
Okay.
All right, guys. We appreciate you guys for watching. This has been What the
Shell
podcast. We had Greg here. It's been a long one. He might break the record. I'd have to check for long episode.
At least second.
But we'll see you next Tuesday for episode 14 with the Terrapin Conservation Initiative.
Share away, y'all.
Yes, share the post, and let's see how many.
Greg some love too. Go hit him up. Seriously, man.
And make sure you subscribe to his channel, man. Go do that. That'd be great. All right, guys. Peace out, man.
Later.